Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody. This is Midge Noble, and thank you so much for joining me today for this episode of Gay with God. And the title today is, Oops, Did God Hear That? Do you ever pause when you realize something you said out loud and you're wondering if God heard that? I was online this morning checking the sound bites and the things that are going on around the nation and in Asheboro, and unfortunately I came across an ugly post that was asking a simple question, if ICE is in Asheboro or coming to Asheboro. And the people that were responding to this question were so blatantly ugly. It was just vile comments, and I will not repeat any of them. But just imagine the most bigoted, racist, ugly comment that you can hear out loud, and these people are posting these comments online. Now, I know that happens all the time, and all of you have seen posts and you're aware of it. But the thing that really hurt my heart today is that I was just wondering, of the people that were making such really, really ugly comments, have they ever asked that question? Did God hear that? Because I don't know how many of them go to church or follow Christ or believe in the love of God. And yet, some of those people who might have been in the pews on Sunday just yesterday are making these vile comments today. Now, I'm no saint, I'll tell you that, and I get really rip-roaring mad over these things that are happening today, and I've been mad pretty much since 2016 when number 45 got his first shot at the White House, and I just have been unbelievably sad and angry and just confused as to how we could just hand everything over to someone and the cabinets that he chooses that are so incompetent to be running this country and being in charge of everything. And so I do say things that I know are inappropriate, and I of course apologize to God and ask for forgiveness. However, I've still said it, and God did hear it. And even if I didn't say it out loud, God knows my heart. God knows my mind. God knows, everything. So I'm not saying that we have to be perfect, because we can't be. And I know I can't be. I know I've always strived to be, because, I'm a very OCD, anal kind of Aries, but I do strive for perfection, and I do get disappointed in myself, and I know it's unrealistic. To my dear friend who pointed out to me the other day that, I'm really hard on myself and I need to give myself a break. Well, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I will continue to try to do that. But when I hear it out loud from other people, it does also bring it full circle to me that if some of the things I've thought in my head, some of the things I might have said out loud among friends without posting it on Facebook, it still resonates with God. It still gives God, I'm sure, pause that anyone would say anything about anybody that he's created. So when I pause to think about that it is a challenge to remember, and we've talked about this before, it is a challenge to remember that God loves everything and everyone he has created. even if they've gone astray, missed the mark, taken a big old U-turn. I mean, a big old U-turn. I still believe that God is not pleased when his creations are being hurt, maligned, taken advantage of. I really think that's why Jesus was so open and very, very clear about how much we need to love each other. And he didn't say, love each other, love your neighbor if they're going to church and being really, really good and they're white and straight. Jesus never said that. Jesus wasn't white. Jesus wasn't even speaking English. So, everybody in church that praises Jesus and calls upon his name can let the same lips say the ugly, ugly things about our brothers and sisters in lots of different languages, skin colors, beliefs. He never said, only love the Christians. Only love the Baptist Christians or the fundamentalist Christians. Just love your neighbor. And because we are a world created by God, everyone is our neighbor. Ukraine, Russia, China, all countries, all people are our neighbors. I'm just wondering what it will take to wake people up to reminding themselves that everything you think, everything you say out loud, and everything you do is being heard, not only by God, but by maybe the children that you're raising, the neighbors that may be some of the people that you're maligning, and you don't even think about it because, oh, well, they're my friends. Somebody said to me the other day that, oh, I have a gay friend, but I don't like those queers that dress up in dresses. Well, how do you know your friend doesn't do that? How do you know that your friend's not drag? How do you know that your friend loves people who are drag? I mean, we put things in such tiny boxes, and we believe only that we can love the people that are like us, and that we can only extend kindness to people who are doing things that we think they should be doing. That's probably the thing that most of us can say, I might need to rethink this, is that we are very clear and set very high standards for people and how they live their lives if it's going against something that we enjoy or we like. For example, we have some new neighbors that have moved in across the street from us. We've met them, we've welcomed them, and we've talked to them. Although we have to go through one of the children because the mom can sometimes understand the things we say, but she also needs to have what we say interpreted to her by her son. And sometimes she needs her son to say what she's trying to get across. Now, in the beginning, when they first started moving in to this house, it's actually a house that they are renting from our current neighbor who's on a 3-month vacation. And so it was really raucous and lots of cars coming and going, lots of things coming in and out, and lots of, noise that hasn't been coming from across the street. And then after they all got moved in and settled, then at I don't know, 10 o'clock one night, we wake up hearing really loud yelling, and I thought someone was in trouble, and jump out of bed, go to the window, and what do I find but our neighbors standing out on their front porch talking really loudly to each other. And I think it was a goodbye thing, like that some of the people were leaving the house for the night, and they were saying goodbyes and talking, but I couldn't understand what they were saying, but it seemed to be more joyful and super loud. I mean, the windows we had installed in our house years ago were created to be so strong and so thick that you could drive the car on it. The guy even showed us that in the driveway that day, that he would take his car and drove it over one of those windows and it didn't crack. So it's sort of going to be something that was good, that people can't break in your windows. And it also gave a lot of reflection from the heat, and it had a lot of good factors to it. So it is quieter in our house since we've gotten those windows, because we can hear things outside, but it's not like really loud, intrusive, because of the new windows that we got. Well, we woke up. Okay, so when we woke up to the people talking on their porch across the road, um, it was loud. It was really, really loud. And my less than nice Midge thought, what the world are they doing? How dare they at this hour of night cause such a ruckus? Because I really wanted to sleep. No excuse. But that's how quickly we go from being kind, loving Christians, open hearted, love your neighbor, to what the world are they doing? And that human part of us that just kind of can do a U-turn and completely forget everything that we're talking about today and everything that we're trying to accomplish in our own lives and in the lives of those we love, we can turn on a dime and get really, really nasty and think ugly things about people. So, as always, I put myself up as the example because I know that we all struggle with being what Christ was and still is today through us. And boy, doesn't that always give me chills when I say that we are basically the hands and feet of Jesus, and we are called to walk and talk the life of Jesus. And so when we find ourselves grumbling about someone else living their life in joy and we're mad because they're louder than we want them to be, opening that expectation of no expectation. We can't expect other people to like the same foods we like and to only eat those foods. We can't expect people to have a voice only as loud as we like to hear it. We can't expect that from other people because, one, we don't want anybody to put that expectation on us. If I want to laugh and holler and have a good time, don't shame me for that. And in turn, I can't shame others for living in their culture, for speaking joy out loud, for being and embracing their life. Now, if it's something that we need to have a conversation with our neighbor about and say, hey, by the way, when you do this, when you park that car right across the street from my driveway, or when you say things really loud, I mean, we are always able to negotiate with people. They may not be open and receptive about it, but we do have a right to talk about our feelings and what's going on with us. And you may need to do that, and you may not need to do that. Maybe just embracing the fact that somebody in this world has family and is having a wonderful time is enough to turn it around and get perspective over why we feel angry about something. During this time of ice, everybody is on edge. And the post that I'm referring to in the beginning of this show was a post about ice coming to Asheboro. And I am so sad, one, that there's ice at all. And I'm sad and angry at how they're taking advantage of our brothers and sisters who may be here legally or may not be here legally, but they're still in our United States of America. And I would like everybody to be legal and be kind and be exactly what I want them to be, as I've said. And yet, that's not possible. And when we opened our gates and the harbors of New York, that was an intentional way to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And every shelter, every church, every parish, every person who has extended their kindness to someone less fortunate, someone that is here to find safety, to live a good life, to get out of a country that just wants to kill them for who they are. When you think about how many teenagers and people in our own community have to leave their homes and fend for themselves, if not the love of churches and ordinary people who are extending kindness to our LGBTQIA plus youth, there would be a higher number of suicides and deaths because they cannot manage their life away from their parents yet, and they are just out there by themselves. So when we see a person, instead of looking at their documentation or looking at whether or not they're this religion, this color, speak this way, we need to look at them as Jesus is asking for help. When I was in college in the choir, we sang a song called "I've Never Seen the Righteous Forsaken." And it talked about people begging for bread, people needing things, and that basically we are to do for others, and that if we don't, it's like we haven't done it for Jesus. And so when we think about all that's going on and the atrocities that are happening in our own United States of America toward people who are living their life, feeding us, cleaning for us, doing the things that all of these families that come to America trying to get to a better place, they're doing things to better their life, but they're also serving us. I would like to know how many ICE agents love Mexican food. I would love to know how many of the people that are hurting all people who are immigrants to this nation, and they just take for granted that they all need to be gone. And it's just absolutely heartbreaking, and it's wrong. It's just wrong. We all know what it's like to have people write us off just because we're gay. We know the hatred that comes our way. We know the struggles legally that we go through and we've just been through. Yes, we now have our legal rights upheld. And then I question, for how long? Who's going to be next? Who's going to, challenge it? Can it still be challenged? I don't know. But all I know for sure is that we all know what it feels like to be othered. And most of us hearing this podcast do not want to other people. And yet in simple ways we do. We may other the person that talks too loud on their porch. We may other a person that has something out in their yard that is part of their tradition and we find it distasteful or ugly or just junk. And yet that's not our life. That's not our life. And so we have to be really open and aware to catch ourselves hearing what God hears. Because, oops, God did hear it. And so did other people, potentially, that could have heard something come out of your mouth that is not really who you are. But as we talked about, what's in your heart does come out. So if you're saying it, somewhere in your heart, you've been taught to others. And that's the place we start. What were we taught? How were we raised? And what is still resonating in us from those early lessons as we listened and watched and learned how to treat others? And instead of othering them, may we include them in our extended family and hope the best for them. Do the best for them that we can, and keep our hearts open to love all of God's children. Thank you, everybody, for listening, sharing, and supporting this podcast. And if you'd like more information about me, you can go to empoweredmidge.podbean.com and see my bio. You can also, from that place, find my book, Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story, a memoir that I wrote to let other people know that you can be gay with the God of your understanding. If you would like a signed copy of the memoir, you can go to my website, gaywithgod.com, and order it from there, and I will send you a signed copy. Check out our Facebook group, Gay with God, where we do a monthly group entitled My Faith Journey. And if you need support coming out, managing your faith, or dealing with just the life that we are living today, and you would like to talk it through and get some support, I offer you a confidential and free session with me, and you can find that link for your complimentary free session at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, if you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you are gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.